Hello, everyone. My name is Lucian. Most of you know me from Twitter as Triangle Investor. In today's edition of CEO and Market Expert Interviews, I am pleased to host Dr. Rebecca Hunter, Vice President of Exploration for Forum Energy Metals Corp. Rebecca, welcome. I'm glad to have you as a guest in my show where we can discuss Forum story from a technical side.
Thank you. It's really nice to be here.
Thanks. Since you are for the first time in my show, I am very interested to hear more about your uranium career, especially your more than 10-year career in Cameco. And how did you become a part of Forum Energy? Please give us your background.
Okay. Well, I mean, I started in about, I think, 2005. And yeah, I started with Cameco and just in their exploration department. It was a bit of a different time then. It was just before the lead up of the last cycle.
Mm-hmm.
And, they were exploring everywhere. So they had their Athabasca assets, and that was a big part of their portfolio, but they also were looking all over the world. And so that's kind of where I entered. And so I kind of entered that part of the group where they were basically looking in Canada's Arctic was a big place, but as well like Australia, Mongolia, Africa. So that's kind of where I started. And early on, they determined, management was like the Thelon is kind of a very important basin. So in 2006 is when I kind of got into that. And I was basically running the project by 2007. And yeah, so I just kind of took that project. It was a very grassroots project. So this sort of project wasn't an established basin. We just basically had a bunch of land and, let's try to figure out what's going on there. So it was a lot of boots on the ground, a lot of geophysics, and then finally, drilling started about 2008. So, kind of quickly progressed it, but did a lot of grassroots stuff. And that's kind of what I did. And then we had discoveries really pretty soon. 2009 was our first kind of just the start of the uranium discovery and 2010. And so, but unfortunately, Fukushima happened in 2011, and that was kind of the end of that. And so then I kind of progressed on a little bit with Cameco after the projects kind of wrapped up in 2012. And did more kind of academic work. I started a thesis with the data from the Thelon because I wanted to basically find more and kind of understand the geology better. So and then kind of putzed around until Rick found me. Yeah, so now we fast forward, to 2022. He's staking. Cameco let the ground go. He started staking, and he's like, Rebecca, can you help us here? Can you kind of tell us where we should be staking here? And so that's kind of how I entered into that realm.
And there you are. Great, Rebecca. I would like to cover some technical specifics of Forum projects with special reference to the Thelon Basin project. But before we do that, I would like that we explain to my audience a few basic terms about uranium exploration. I mean, I personally am not a geologist, but I have more than 15 years in uranium market and resource investing provided me with a good basis for learning a lot of things about geology. But when I started doing interviews, I told myself that I will ask the questions in a way that everyone can understand them and that I can clarify certain terms, because this video will be watched by potential investor in uranium who does not have much knowledge of geology. That said, please give us the first explanation of unconformity type uranium deposits.
Okay, so they're like, I think I've said in other interviews, there's many types of uranium deposits. There's 15 different types. And so unconformity ones are kind of a special type because they have really high grades. And so I guess the simplest of terms is that they form in older rocks. Typically, you have this kind of younger, so still several billion years old,
yes.
but an undeformed sandstone, basically. And then you've got older rocks underneath that are quite messed up. And you have faults in those older rocks. And basically you get mineralization, you get this high grade kind of dense uranium mineralization at that contact between that sandstone and those older rocks. And that's the unconformity. That's what the term comes from. And why they're special is because of that unique kind of setting, they are really high grade. So uranium deposits, if you kind of average all uranium deposits in the world, all the different types, it's about 0.05%.
Yeah.
So, very, very low grade overall. And unconformity deposits they're kind of range from 0.5 to 20%. And that's mining grade. So that's actually the resource you get out of the ground is that realm. And then in the Athabasca, what makes the Athabasca so special is a lot of those deposits are greater than 1%. And then you have those really crazy deposits like Cigar and MacArthur River that are 20%. And so they just kind of blow it away. So that's kind of the unconformity in a nutshell. And the grade is really what's king when it comes to those deposits.
Yeah, agreed. But there are only 3 unconformity basins that have proven economic. Athabasca, Saskatchewan, MacArthur, Australia, and Thelon, right?
Yes, correct.
Yeah. Rebecca, could you explain the significance of the grade? Why is grade important? And is it just grade, or there are a few factors important to take in consideration, like intercept length, width, orientation, etc.?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, tonnage also makes a big difference. So, I mean, you can have all the grade if you want. If it's a tiny deposit, it's not going to be economic. So the things that you have to take into account are kind of the depth of mineralization. So that's also very important because going forward, you have to mine it. And so far, the uranium mines are, half a kilometer. That's what MacArthur and Cigar are. Those are those incredible grades. They're down at that depth. But once you start getting deeper, you've got to have a lot of infrastructure and a lot of capital costs to get these types of deposits out of the ground. So that's an important consideration too. But if you can open pits, so if you actually have really high grades at shallow depths, well, that's really good. So
yeah, definitely. Rebecca, is there a difference between type of land you explore in Athabasca, since you have projects also in Athabasca, and the land you explored in the recent exploration drilling campaign in Thelon Basin? What are the main differences between those two?
The big difference, I mean, overall it's the same, same kind of geology, but I guess one of the differences is in the Athabasca, and if you're familiar at all, a lot of ways that you look for these deposits in the Athabasca is they do electromagnetic geophysical surveys. Yeah. And those basically they pick up on graphite and they basically highlight the faults. And most times the mineralization in the Athabasca is situated along those graphitic faults, which of course they light up with the EM. One of the differences in the Thelon Basin is that the geology is a little bit different. We don't have those graphitic units. So you actually can't just use these really nice EM surveys to kind of highlight conductors and then start drilling them. So we have to kind of work with different geophysical techniques. And so we use gravity as a different one that just basically can help you see where you've got what we call alteration. It's usually clay. And we also need to just chase the mineralization is still situated on fault zones. So it's still, but you actually have to, in some ways you have to do a bit more boots on the ground work and find, actual surface expressions and follow these fault zones and use, magnetics. You just use different methods. The same, but you have to kind of use a bit different exploration techniques.
That's very interesting, really. Let's discuss company latest success in the Thelon Basin, on the Thelon Basin uranium project. In my book, this is one of the best exploration news outside of Athabasca this year. So let me quote the news releases related to this drilling. September 12th, Forum intersects 2.25% U3O8 over 11.1 meter. Then we have intersect. Then you have intersect 1.1. Then you extended uranium mineralization, and of course, in the last press release, you had besides 1.01 U3O8 over 6 meters, you had included 4.36% of U3O8 over 1.3 meters. That is really excellent. Rebecca, what are these results telling you? I mean, this is an early discovery, but you can draw conclusions with the results on hand on how much potential this deposit has.
So the biggest thing is that in those intercepts is that one of the things, if I go back to when I did my thesis, and so we were drilling, we started the initial discovery of this zone way back with Cameco, but we didn't really understand what was going on. We just kind of we were getting in there, we would hit it, we would miss it. And so one of the things when I did my thesis was I really wanted to figure out that structural geometry, essentially, the way this is in the mineralization is in the ground. And so I came up with the hypothesis based on looking at this data more, is that it's a bunch of steep structures, steep kind of lenses that are subvertical. Initially, we thought maybe these lenses were more horizontal. We just didn't know what was going on yet. And so we got these, instead we have these steep vertical lenses and several of them. And so these holes, so the real exciting part of this, these intercepts is that that 2% over 11 meters is actually only hitting a couple of them. So we have about, 5 subvertical lenses, and that 2% over 11 meters is only hitting 2 of them. So it's a much thicker zone, essentially. And so but it also shows that that hypothesis is correct. That this is how these ore zones are now, and now that's how we chase them. And then the rest of those releases is that we wanted to step out and just show that it has a significant strike length. And so that's why we kind of stepped out pretty aggressively as a bit of a chance to do a 200-meter step out. But we wanted to do it to show that it could be there, and it was. So now we have more mineralization, still, over 1% grade. And again, that's only hitting a couple of the lenses. So the expandability now, based on that, is a lot larger. We can widen it. So right now, we think the mineralization is about 50 meters wide. It's got about 5 high-grade lenses in it. We can expand that, kind of north, and then also along strike. So then we have all this strike length now that we know that we have continuous mineralization. So now we can expand that for over a kilometer to the northeast.
Excellent. And Rebecca, how many meters in total have you drilled this year?
This year we only did 1,000 meters. So we really we got the financing earlier this year with that strategic investor, Rick got me the money, and then we just ran with it. We wanted to get some results, and so we actually worked out of the nearest community. We didn't actually build a camp, and just basically just got a drill up there, quickly got those meters, so 1,000 meters.
Yeah, but even that 1,000 meters, that is even more spectacular that you did it in this small drilling campaign and had such a great success. But what are the plans for the next drilling campaign? Do you have already a plan of how will that drilling going to be? I mean, some details, how many meters, which direction, deeper or shallower? Please expand a little bit on the next steps on the next drilling campaign.
So with some of the money that we got this year, we also preemptively got a second drill kind of shipped up there. So the most cost-effective way to work up in the territories is actually barging stuff up to the nearest community by boat. And so we did that. We got a drill. We have most of our camp and stuff like that. So for next year, the plan is to construct the camp. And then, we'll be drilling. The plan is to drill about 12,000 meters. So, up that significantly. And basically, we'll be focusing about 75% of that at that Tagak discovery. So we want to expand it. We're going to start stepping out significantly along, like to the northeast, along kind of strike of the mineralization, and we want to build the resource. So that's kind of what we plan on doing. We also do want to, so far the mineralization is all very shallow. So it's all under 180 meters. So we actually haven't tested deeper either along this corridor. So the plan is also to do some holes at depth and just drill underneath it and see if maybe we even have, larger or more mineralization at depth, as well as expand the width. So it's kind of a multifaceted thing to build a resource quickly.
Rebecca, how deep do you know approximate number?
We haven't drilled deeper than 250. So, I mean, we'll drill to probably 400 and see, and that's kind of depending on what we see.
Okay. Do you believe that you will have a sufficient data to define 43-101 resource after that drilling finishes in 2024?
No, we'll need more drilling than that. So I think, we need at least 2 drill campaigns of that significance or 3. So I think next year we'll have a really good idea, kind of like what we're working with. And then, by the end of, I guess, 2025, that would be the year that we could put together probably, a resource. So that's kind of what we're looking at.
That is reasonable, definitely. I want to touch a little bit on the drilling costs. Some typical numbers for, let's say, drilling in the Athabasca say it is around $400-$500 per meter. Of course, dependent on some other factors as well. What are your drilling costs in Thelon Basin?
So I don't really want to base it on what it cost this year, because it was a short program. We were working, we used a lot of helicopter time this summer to, obviously, because we were working in Baker Lake. But back when I was working there last, and you get 2 to 3 drills, like the key up there is to actually hit these areas hard. I'd get the drilling, all in cost down to like between 500 and 700 a meter is kind of what you're looking at for drill cost if you actually hit the area hard.
I mean, there are few drilling sites in Athabasca that are in the similar range. Of course, depending on how big is the drilling. Rebecca, are you taking any different approach in drilling and interpreting results differently? I mean, by that, are you using artificial intelligence?
At this point, no. I mean, we're using a lot of my knowledge, just from before, because one of the aspects of this project is that usually when a project goes dormant, you lose it all. Like it gets into the assessment reports, and then other geologists come in and they mine it or whatever. But in this case, I'm still there, so so I can keep.
So no artificial, just human intelligence.
Just my intelligence, human
Rebecca's intelligence. Okay.
Yeah, at this stage anyway.
Okay. Rebecca, did you done some wild drilling, or do you plan to do some wildcat drilling on the project? I mean, I had few companies in my portfolio that had a big success a few years ago on wildcat drilling. So I am curious, do you plan maybe to do a wildcat on Thelon next year?
Yes. So we want to focus about 75% of it on Turaqvik, and the rest, so 2,000 to 3,000 meters, I very much want to go to the rest of the project and start poking around, because that's one of the bigger prizes actually in the Thelon is that, we got Turaqvik in our back pocket. We also have another mineralized zone that's just starting. But we have all these other great targets. We know the fault zones that seem to be hosting the mineralization, basically what Orano has, plus we kind of know what structures we should be targeting. And yes, so this summer, actually, we only got 1 hole into kind of one of my favorite targets called Ned, but we lost it early on, just drilling difficulties and, short program. But it has exactly what you look for. So when we're kind of going into these areas, we look at the really subtle geochemistry. It's mostly not exciting. I'm sure investors look at these press releases and they're They're like, what the hell is exciting about this? But it is exciting to us when
Yeah, yeah.
we find these clues, essentially. So, yes, we're very much going to be doing a good number, because I mean, the prize up here is actually to intersect. I mean, a MacArthur or a cigar is the goal. Like something with substantial grade and substantial tonnage is kind of what we're really looking for.
You mentioned some big names, and my question is, I saw an interesting stuff in one of your presentation where you stated that uranium mineralization is similar to next-gen Arrow and Cameco's Eagle Point.
Mhm.
My question is, do you see some other similarities with those deposits?
Well, mostly what we're talking about in that is that we've got that really good that structural setting. And so like Arrow and Eagle Point is all very structurally controlled in these faults, and they're steep, and they kind of have blowouts and pinch outs and stuff like that. So that's kind of where we're getting at there. Other similarities though is that from the historical drilling, like his drilling we did with Cameco, there's a few grids that we're going to get back to that had, you know, alteration and geochemistry very similar to those big ones, like the Cigar and MacArthur. We have that altered sandstone, and it's really it's the first time in the Thelon Basin history that that sort of alteration is and geochemistry has been found in this area of in that area of the world. And so that's because, you know, one of the questions is, you know, the naysayers, you know, or like, well, the Thelon, it's never going to have these big deposits. You know, it's different geology. You're never going to see it. And I think what we've seen from those historical holes is that the processes are there. So it's just a matter of time and money to get there and actually drill it. And I'm confident that we can find similar size ore zones.
Okay. This project has exploration history, right? It's not a brand new project, so to say. What was
Mhm.
done prior your company took over?
So all that work was I mean, there was a boom in the 70s. So the very early starter kind of, yeah, like the 70s,
Yeah.
maybe late 60s, oil companies and some early companies like Anaconda, Cameco were actually working up there. So they kind of you know, started the process. And so they, you know, highlighted areas where, you know, it had the great geology and stuff like that. But then the 80s came and that was wiped off the map. And so it wasn't really until Cameco came back in the early 2000s, and then so the work that's been done, which was really nice. When you do work for a mining company, you're not as strapped for time and money. So you can kind of do things very systematically. So I had the luxury of that. So we had, you know, we did really good geophysics, like broad geophysics over the property, which was a lot bigger than what Forum has now. And we walked the ground, you know, we sampled everything, we looked at everything, and did all the geochemistry, you know, like looked at the tiniest anomalies. So all that, we have that whole data set. So that was a very systematic approach. And then finally all the drilling. And so, you know, there's over 100 drill holes that have been done in the area. So looking at all that too, plus kind of trying to, anytime we can talk to the Orano people and take a look at their core and kind of, you know, take a look at what they're doing too is really helpful.
So your relationship with Orano is solid?
Well, I mean, they keep a lot of stuff close to their chest, but yeah, we have a relationship with Orano, like because we're joint ventured with them on a few of our Athabasca
Yes.
projects, and
Yeah,
and and I mean, it's kind of I mean, when I was up there with Cameco, I mean, we're all, you know, you're working up there in the Arctic, you're all kind of helping each other out a
yeah.
bit logistically and whatnot. So yeah, there's a lot of knowledge sharing, or there was then, you know, looking. So because I mean, the more success up there, the better.
Of course, of course. Rebecca, can you tell me more about the location and the infrastructure there, and on what kind of geological trend is your land position?
So the infrastructure is really not. So so the closest community is is like 100 kilometers to the east of our property. So that's the closest community. Just of note, though, 100 kilometers north of that community is Agnico Eagle's Meadowbank mine. So there is a road up to that, and you know, obviously mining infrastructure not that far away.
Mm-hmm.
But on our property, you know, it's just the Orano camp is still there. It's in care and maintenance, but it's still there. And then what we have is we'll be putting in our camp next year. So we just have a couple tents up there that we logged our core in. So that's, and as far as the trends, I
Yes.
mean, we have the property. So at least my hypothesis is that the major corridors are kind of these east-northeast trending fault zones. And our property is a long trend of that. And we have kind of the nicest extensions of those major fault zones.
Okay, great. You mentioned a relationship with the community. How would you describe it?
So it's been very good. So I mean, we've got in there really early. We've done, you know, several community engagements. We've actually hired kind of a third-party company out of Saskatoon that's really familiar. They're called Creative Fire, and they work with Indigenous communities. They also have a really good knowledge of the nuclear sector, so they work a lot with Cameco and whatnot and stuff like that. So we have them helping us, and so yeah, we've got all our permits, and it's been really good getting back there. It's like, for me, coming back has also been very nice and kind of reconnecting with the community.
Mm-hmm. Final question about Thelon. How many people do you expect that will be on site during the full drilling season, and how many people will work there?
Probably around 30 to 40, depending on, because we'll have our 2 drills going, and you know, geophysics, maybe some additional geophysics and the geos. So kind of 30 to 40 people. Even if we could get even more money, what would be ideal is to have 3 drills going and actually really hit the property hard next year.
Yeah, but you have that part covered. You don't have to search for the people. You
Yeah.
have, yeah, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. Oh, yes. Yes.
That is great to hear. I mean, with the problems with the working labor. So, okay. Rebecca, let's move a little bit to the south. You have a portfolio of Athabasca assets. Some are 100% owned, some are joint ventures. Which ones is your plan to advance this winter or in the next, let's say, 6 to 12 months?
So the main ones is, of course, our 100% Wollaston. So we plan on doing a bit more geophysics. So we have some good areas that are potential to target, but they need to be narrowed down. So I'm not really comfortable doing another drill program until we can kind of narrow down and drill our best targets. So that's one of the main ones. So this winter will just be additional geophysics, and we'll go from there. And we have some of our option agreements. So High Rock is on the Key Lake trend, which is kind of south of that Key Lake mill, really good geology. So Sassy Resources, we're hoping that they'll be drilling. They're operating the project, and that they'll drill along that trend, because we already identified like really good gravity anomalies and really good EM targets. So they just need to be drilled. So those are the 2 main ones for the winter. And then of course our Northwest Athabasca one, we're actively, you know, looking for partners on that. It's ready to drill. So, you know, tons of, again, just not sustained exploration up there. It's kind of almost the Thelon of the Athabasca, as far as it's kind of in the northwest quadrant. Again, it's considered remote. So, you know, it hasn't had the love that it should have, and it has a little historical resource there. So like 1 million pounds, 1.5 million pounds in the sandstone, lots of smoke. So it's just really getting into there and drilling it. So we might see that, you know, in the summer potentially of 2024.
Okay, can you please say a little bit more about the exploration status and the geological characteristics of your Henday project? You have a new joint venture partner with Uranium Energy Corp USC. Can you expand a little bit? What are the plans there? And basically, can you tell me more about this project, exploration status and geological characteristics?
Yeah, so Henday, initially was, it basically UEC kind of got it through Hathor, through Rio Tinto, and now they have it. So it's in a really good corridor. It's kind of along, it's north and a long trend of Rough Rider kind of into that area of the Athabasca. It's shallow sandstone, really good kind of conductive trends. And when Rio was up there, they kind of focused on a few of these northwest kind of trends, and they did really widely spaced drilling. Like they didn't do the project any justice, essentially, because they found some really great alteration. Like it's almost, you look at some of the core now and you're like, why didn't you drill more? But they kind of did the wide spacing because, of course they're looking for these kind of this major tier 1 deposits, but in the meantime they drill too wide and it's easy to miss. So anyways, really good geology there. And so now UEC has it. So we've been discussions, and I think we're kind of in a new compilation phase. We're going to kind of go through the data again and then possibly propose maybe starting up exploration in the next few years. To kind of reignite that one, which would be really nice.
Yeah. Okay, same question for Clearwater. You have 70% ownership there. It's on a nice place, this project. Same question. I mean, what is the exploration status and geological characteristics of this one?
So this one's quite interesting too. And so it's a long trend of the fission kind of arrow kind of trend. And, same kind of geology. It kind of butts up against that mag high that's in the area. And anyways, so far we don't have any plans to work on it. So I mean, the land is in good standing, but it's been on my radar since I started with Forum. And it is an area that I'd like to get back to because, again, I think in some ways we didn't spend enough time maybe doing a bit more systematic geology, and we could probably do some more, smart geophysics on that to kind of narrow down some of the corridors we were chasing. So I think there's a high potential to do something good there. We just need to get back and do it. And so right now, with the Thelon being such a big part of like what I'm focusing on now, it's on the back burner, but it's not forgotten.
Okay. Final one, Grease River. Same question. What are the plans and exploration status?
So this summer we did some geophysics. We did that kind of excite. So it's a mag radiometric EM. So we got some really good data there. What's interesting about the Grease River trend is it's on a major structural corridor that goes into the Athabasca Basin that just hasn't been explored. It's different rocks though. So you've got to go into that area understanding that you're not looking at the Wollaston domain anymore. You're looking at, really cooked up rocks, a lot of strain, different units. So that's one thing that we have to get in there and kind of understand. There is a little historical resource, so that's kind of what, we need to understand more and kind of chase. And so the plan is to review that, the geophysics that we did. And now I'm proposing probably to do a bit more detailed geophysics, get on the ground, sample some of these showings so that we actually know what the rocks are that are mineralized. They take a very much like a Thelon approach, so that, when we do drill, which should be in the next year or two, that we're drilling the best targets.
Okay, thank you very much, Rebecca, for coming to my show. You are a well of knowledge when it comes to uranium exploration, and I would be glad to host you soon to discuss more uranium stuff. Rebecca, thank you very much for being my guest.
Thank you. It was a pleasure being here.
Thanks.